Welcome to the Femininja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the Femininja Project. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Femininja Project. And thank you so much for being here and tuning in. I really appreciate you. And sometimes we all get stuck in the muck and we get stuck in patterns that are not serving us well and can even be harming us. And we need a little bit of help and maybe somebody who can guide us through those ruts or deep crevices and get back to a path of health, wellness, healing, and a happy, healthy life. And today's guest knows a lot about that. Her name is Nancy McKay. She is a certified Wayfinder Life Coach, Equus Coach, and mind-body eating coach. She is also a contributing author for the third edition of Learning to Fly. She is a survivor and a thriver, and a woman I am really happy and proud to call my friend. Her mission is to help women break through from negative thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors so they can create a life filled with happiness and peace. So Nancy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Cheryl, it's so nice to be here with you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, you are welcome. I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time.
Me too.
So I just would like you to tell the audience your story, because you do have you've had a lot of bumps in the road of life.
Well, I've had a fair share, I suppose. So I guess just to begin, I grew up in an alcoholic household. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom was a heavy drinker to, I think, kind of put up with him in his alcoholism, but they were both very high functioning. So, they both had great jobs and careers and, they were very, high functioning. But I learned at an early age to walk on eggshells. It felt like I was always anticipating something happening. I realize now, and I think you and I have talked about this in the past, about how that just keeps you on high alert and increases your cortisol and, just all kinds of stuff. So I think my physical system has been altered because of that. So then I grew into being an alcoholic myself. I started drinking in high school with all of my buddies and, kind of continued on. I was a party girl. And so in my 30s, I was abusing alcohol. In my 40s, that abuse increased a bit. By then I got married when I was 47. My husband and I had been together for 7 years when we got married, and we were the fun couple. We were the couple that, when we walked into a party, everybody was glad to see us. And, we had fun. And my father then committed suicide when I was 50.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. And that kicked my drinking into overdrive. So that's kind of where I pivoted from being an alcohol abuser, heavy drinker, to drinking alcoholically. And the difference for me was I was really drinking out of guilt. So all of a sudden I realized, and I don't know that I realized it at the time, but I was definitely using alcohol as a coping tool at that point. And it took about 2 years before I became suicidal. And so in March of 2009, I attempted suicide. and it scared me sober. And I haven't had a drink since.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the biggest pivot, life change that I had ever made. And it was the best thing I've ever done for myself. If the gun that I was using hadn't, misfired, I would have been dead one way or another, or, ended up, hospitalized or something. I mean, I was heading down the wrong path for sure.
Yeah.
So, recovery was such a gift to myself, and I learned to really be grateful for that, and not have the, oh, poor me, I can't drink anymore sort of thing, into, I don't have to drink anymore. Right.
It almost sounds like it was liberating, that alcohol no longer had its grip on you.
Exactly. It was very liberating.
If I can ask, did you do it yourself, or did you go through AA, or did you have a coach?
I went through AA pretty reluctantly. When I quit drinking, on Friday the 13th of March, 2009, up until that point, I was not going to go to AA. I just, it was very demoralizing, I thought. And I wasn't quote, that bad, unquote, and it just felt like, the end of the road. And yet that's the first thing I did. The day after, the day after, I called my neighbor who was in AA, and the next day she took me to my first meeting, and they saved my life. That's all there is to it. I mean, I didn't have an alternative at that point. And because I was so terrified of what could have happened and what could happen, I did exactly what they told me to do.
I find it very interesting that it was Friday the 13th, because typically we think of Friday the 13th as, a very unlucky day, but you were very lucky that day.
I was incredibly lucky. And my story in Ready to Fly is entitled The Intersection of Desperation and Grace. And that's where I was when that gun went off, and the only thing that got shot was an innocent pillow on the bed. I was definitely standing at the intersection of desperation and grace. That was right there. And I am so grateful to have had that experience go like it did, because it could have been so devastating to my husband and everyone who knew and loved me at the time. I mean, it could have really been a bad thing. So, somebody, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, was looking out for me and making sure that did not happen. And I'm so grateful.
I'm curious, did you keep the pillow for at least a little while as kind of just like a good luck charm, or did you get rid of it right away?
No, I think we still have the pillow. I'm not positive. I definitely have the bullet in my jewelry box.
Wow.
I will never get rid of it, because it's a very good reminder for me.
Well, and a powerful talisman, or whatever they call
that. Right. That's what happens. That's where my drinking takes me.
Wow.
And I have to remember that.
That's amazing. So then when did you decide to become a coach? So did that path, after you went to AA and you're making this transformation and recovering from the alcohol and this terribly traumatic experience, and just knowing what could have happened and could have been. What happened then?
So after that, I got a really good job. A year after I got sober, I got a really good job making incredible money I had never made before. Incredible, but just fabulous. And that was incredible for years. And 6 years after I got sober, 5 years after I had started working at this job, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Mm-hmm. And after I had finished treatment, I'm not sure if I started thinking about it as I was going through treatment, but after I got finished with treatment and things were sort of returning to normal, I realized that my job wasn't making me as happy as it once did. Mm-hmm. So something that just pops into my mind is the thought, my job isn't making me happy anymore, right? Which is a thought. Mm-hmm. The job hadn't changed. I had changed, right? Mm-hmm. So as this went on and I started nitpicking everything that was wrong with the circumstance, or so I thought, then I decided that I needed something different. That if I found, all these things wrong, then it was up to me to change it. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I have control over is myself, right? I'm not going to be able to change them. I can only change me. So I wanted to do something that fed my soul. And I had a couple of friends who were life coaches, and I thought, you know what? If they can do that, so can I. Mm-hmm. And I read a book by Martha Beck. It was her first piece of fiction, and it changed my life because it felt like she wrote that book especially for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not exactly sure why, except that this woman was an underdog, and I felt like I was an underdog. And it shifted everything, because then after I read that book, then I went to see her at a workshop in California. And when I came home from the workshop, I enrolled in her coach training. Mm-hmm. And I already had, at that point, I was wrapping up my training as a mind-body eating coach through the Institute for Psychology of Eating, which was incredible information, but didn't teach us any coaching mm-hmm. tools at that time, or at least it didn't seem to me, my perception. Mm-hmm. I don't want to disparage that incredible organization, a great organization. Mm-hmm. But with Martha Beck, I got so many tools, so many incredible tools. And then from there, I had a couple of experiences with horses. Mm-hmm. And the magic that they brought to me, just, I couldn't not do it. It was like, I had the opportunity to enroll in Equus Coach training, and it was a no-brainer for me. I mean, it was something I knew I had to do. And so to have come from where I had been to where I am now, has been significant. It's
you think?
Well, and sometimes it's really easy for me to downplay it and not understand the shifts that I've made and the changes that I've made in my life. Mm-hmm.
I have just a few questions for you. First of all, because we've had this discussion, of course, about horses, and full disclosure, I am a client of Nancy, so I am doing the Equus therapy with her. But did it surprise you? Because you never had a lot of experience around horses. Were you surprised when they spoke to you in such a way that was so powerful and impactful?
Oh my God, yes. I wasn't surprised. I was shocked mm-hmm. that those experiences would mean so much to me. The first horse that I worked with, I'll never forget, it was in Santa Fe, and that horse looked me in the eye, and I could feel her gaze going all the way down into my guts. I mean, it was like that horse knew me, and it was that was my first experience with it. And it was like, this is incredible. I had no idea the connection that you can make with an animal of that size, and just feel so aligned.
I don't know if I told you what my first experience was with a horse, but we were hiking and, in the mountains, and I was in a really bad place, really, really low point in my life. And to top it all off, I was having surgery the following week, minor surgery, but you know what the definition of minor surgery is? It's what they do to someone else. So, I was just not in a good place. And all of a sudden, this beautiful, beautiful, big, huge red horse rounded the corner. Guy was riding it, and they stopped. We had stepped off of the trail for them. And the horse kind of looked at me, and it was just like, I could hear angels singing. And I asked the man, I says, is it okay if I pet her? Because, you don't want to touch somebody else's horse or animal or anything without permission. And he says, that's what she's waiting for.
Oh.
And I was like, I know. And, I started stroking her neck, and then she put that long, beautiful neck against mine. And it was like, okay, I can go on. Everything's going to be all right. And I'll be okay. And it was just the most magical moment. And from that point on, every time a horse comes into my life, and they do every now and again, it's always at the exact time I need it, which is why I'm so excited that the two of us connected and I get to experience Equus therapy. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know that. So continue.
Oh, that's an incredible story. That's really great. I love it. And so it's just, the shocking, well, here's another good shocking story.
Oh, I love that.
So a little while after, like 6 or 9 months or something after the Santa Fe experience, I went to a retreat, a women's Equus retreat in Tucson, and worked with, I was working with this incredibly huge draft mare, and she was just amazing. And she did this thing, I'm 5 foot tall, so I could stand under her head, fully standing. I could stand there. And so she was doing this arcing thing where she would move her head back and forth over mine.
Oh.
And the coach said, my perception of that is that she is trying to tell you to get grounded.
Oh.
And I said, wow, that's amazing. And then she had me take the horse, she had her halter on, and this was after our little session, and she had me have her on a lead rope, and we were all sitting down, and the horse, she was right behind me. She continued to do this. But then it was almost like if she could have crawled into my lap, she would have. She was just right there, right next to me. And she wouldn't, it wasn't like she was tugging to get away or anything like that. She was there for me. And then the following weekend, I was in California for another workshop. And that horse did exactly the same thing with the over the head movement. And that coach said to me, that horse is telling you need to be grounded.
Wow.
That horse is trying to get you to be grounded. And I'm like, okay, I'm sold.
So it's exactly, it's almost like the horse that you had the experience with the week before got on the phone and said, hey, you're going to be seeing this lady.
By the way, when she do that thing, because it was so incredible. Funny. It was like, okay. And the coaches at the second workshop were all Martha Beck Wayfinder
Mhm.
coaches.
Mhm.
And so it was a natural shift for me to shift into the Coel Institute for Equus Coaching, because all of my coaches, not all of my coaches, but the coaches that I had been working with that were Equus coaches were trained in that
Mhm.
in that discipline. And so that's where I went. And it's the most fulfilling work I've ever had. I don't know if you've ever experienced that sense of explosion of love. That's the only way I can explain it. Where when you're doing something, or when you're with someone and you have this feeling wash over you and then just sort of explode out of your chest, and it's palpable for me. I can feel it. I don't describe it very well, but I can feel it so well. And that happens to me when I'm coaching with a horse. I just, one day I was coaching someone and that feeling came over me, and it was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
This is it.
Mhm.
You found your purpose. And I haven't looked back. I mean, that it's just, I feel like I'm the luckiest person on earth.
Well, what you're describing is an experience, and it's so hard to put words to an experience like that,
Exactly.
because there are no words. Even as writers and authors, we have a pretty good vocabulary, but how do you describe an experience like that
Right.
and do it justice?
Right. You can't say it.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you what happened, but it doesn't come close to the feeling that I felt.
In my experience, it's almost like levitating. It's almost like taken to another dimension, or another, a different universe, or almost an out of body experience, but not really, because you were so fully engaged in the moment.
Right. Right.
So then you got your Equus coaching training certification.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take before you enrolled in the program after that last experience? Was it kind of like the next day you were on the phone, or?
Yeah, it was. I mean, because I talked to the coaches there and I said, do you think this is something I could do? Would I be good at this?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and I want your honest feedback. I don't want, the sales pitch. I want, do you think I am capable? And they said, you're not only capable, but we can tell that this is something special for you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I did. I came home from that trip and I, signed up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in November of 2018. And the next class started in spring of 19, and I was there.
Wow. And how long was the training?
It was almost a year. It was 9 months.
Mm-hmm. And was it local, or did you have to travel?
No, it was virtual. A lot of the classwork was virtual. And then we did 3 on-sites where I was in California twice, and then did some testing in Arizona. And, so it was, we had hands-on experience, and that was amazing. It was amazing. I had one phenomenal experience while I was there, and we probably don't have time to talk about it today, but it was an incredible learning experience for me, and it made me understand how important connecting is, and how frequently I just go into task mode.
You know what? Are you willing to share that story?
Oh, I'd be delighted to share.
Go for it. Go for it.
So we were at, I'm not sure if it was the first, I think it was the first on-site. It doesn't really matter. I was asked to go get this mare from her pasture and bring her to the arena. So I think there was 15 of us in the class, and we were all going to congregate down by the arena. And so I brought one of my classmates with me because I hadn't been to this one pasture before. So I wanted to have somebody that knew where they were going and whatnot. So my friend Steven went with me, and we go to get her harnessed up. And so we're walking down this little driveway to get to the arena. And on the driveway, there's cars parked on both sides of the driveway. It's like a little street. So we're walking the horse. Her name is Sundance, mare in heat.
Whoa.
Yeah. Let's be sure to add that little detail.
Whoa.
So Sundance is, she's in heat. So she's a little pushy, and she's got, an attitude, and she's a big girl. She's probably 1,200 pounds ish. And she's, kind of shoving me over, trying to push me into the cars, and, she's trying to drive the boat. Well, she is driving the boat. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing a very poor job of controlling the situation. And I'm doing a very poor job of communicating with her. So, I'm pulling and she's pushing, and it's not pretty. So we get down to the arena after much of this, and they've changed their mind of where I'm going to put Sundance. And they decide that I'm going to take her through this very narrow gate that's at the bottom of this paddock. And it's where they normally load the trailers, load horses on the trailers. So they kind of funnel everybody down into this narrow gate so they can funnel them onto the trailer. Well, on this particular day, there are about 4 horses in the arena, which is right there, and a bunch of horses in the paddock still, probably 6 or 8 in the paddock. And I'm supposed to bring Sundance through the narrow gate at the bottom of the hill in the paddock. Mm. Well, so we've got Sundance's boyfriend, Cooper, is in the arena right there. And he's very excited to see Sundance. He's a gelding, but he doesn't know it.
Oh, geez.
And Sundance is like, yeah, I want some of that. And Sundance is like, yeah, I'll give you some of that. And everybody's excited, right? Everybody's excited. And I'm starting to get a little nervous because everybody's excited right there where I am in this little narrow corner about feeling like I'm about to get trampled to death. So fortunately, people started coming to my rescue. Coaches came and classmates came, and it all turned out fine, but it shook me up. And I realized either that night or the next morning when I was waking up that I owed that horse an apology. Mm. And so the next day, we got there and we were wrapping up, and I had another opportunity to be coached and filmed because we wanted to have a video of us being coached. Mm-hmm. So I had that opportunity, and I said, well, I'm going to work with Sundance. And they're like, are you sure? Yeah, I owe that horse an apology. So I went and got the horse. She was trying to be pushy with me. Coel gave me some tips and tricks to manage the situation. Put her in the round pen. And my coach said, okay, so what do you want to do? And I said, need to apologize. And so she said, well, go do that. So I went over to Sundance, who was on the other side of the round pen. And I stood there and I told her, I said, I owe you an apology. I'm so sorry. I was on task mode. I didn't bother to connect with you. Blah, blah, blah. Spilled my guts, started crying. And so I started walking, and the horse was matching my footsteps.
Oh.
And she would not leave my side.
Oh.
We walked around the round pen, like, I don't know how many times. And Kasha, my coach, said, come over here. And I went over to talk to her at the edge of the round pen, and she said, who are you and what did you do to that horse?
Oh.
And it was the most incredible and fulfilling experience, because it was so clear that if you take the time to connect, nothing else really matters. It's just that I get so wrapped up in the to-dos and the, got to get it done. And, here we are. Mm-hmm. And that is probably one of my assets and also one of my curses, is that right. I let that dictate how I run my life. It's easy for me to fall into that. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do the connection part. I want to have the heartfelt exchange with humans and beasts, because horses are so intuitive, and they know. She knew that at first I had no interest in connecting with her, that I was on task, I was doing a job, and she was not interested. Mm-hmm. And when I took the time to connect and be authentic and vulnerable with her, she was like, she was on me and with me. Mm-hmm. And it was extraordinary.
That is such a powerful story in so many ways and on so many levels. But just as you said, you'd like to have that connection with all animals and with, the human animal as well. And that's something that's missing, I think, a lot of times in our relationships and even our casual, relationships. Mm-hmm. And I was, as you were telling that story and talking about how you apologize to her and what her reaction is, all I could think of is, if only people could be that gracious in accepting an apology as well, that wouldn't we be living in a different world?
Oh my God.
I know.
And if people were willing to apologize.
That too, but I also, especially for women, I've actually done a couple of blog posts on this and a podcast episode, is how sometimes women apologize all the time. Oh. They apologize for things that they haven't even done. And every time they say those words, I'm sorry, yeah. It's chipping away at their personal power. So it's, finding that balance. And the other thing I wanted to point out too, is how you were talking about that always being on task. But we have a saying in martial arts, your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. So being able to identify that and use your strength for the power of good.
Yeah. And I do want to clarify on the apology thing. I am one of those women who say, I'm sorry so easily. It just rolls off my tongue so easily. And I'm becoming more and more and more aware of the impact that those two little words have on my well-being.
Exactly.
When I was talking about the apology, it's like knowing that acknowledging that you've made a mistake or hurt someone's feelings or something like that, and taking responsibility for it and truly, making an amends and, not that offhanded, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know, I met a friend, one of my dearest friends, her old boyfriend used to say, it was a joke, but it's like, it really resonated with me. I'm sorry for everything I've ever done in life. It was just, and there have been times when I've kind of felt that way.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what came out of my mouth, because it felt like that's what the other person wanted to hear.
Yeah, there was a time when I not only apologized for everything I might have done or didn't do, but possibly could do in the future, just in case, because everything,
cover your bases.
There you go. Everything was my fault. And I remember telling that to a friend of mine who was a chiropractor, and she just looked at me and she said, now, come on, that's not true. And I gave her the big puppy dog eyes, and she says, because that's my fault. So, we laughed, but knowing the difference, like you said, between a heartfelt apology and just saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And when you have hurt somebody's feelings and you give that apology from the heart, it actually heals you as well as the other person.
Oh, absolutely. Forgiveness is a huge part of personal development.
It really is. And kind of tough to learn that one too, and to accept that. Yeah. So then when did you start the coaching? When did you start your Amazing Outlook coaching?
Yes.
It's a great name. Love it. And tell us about it. When did you open that business or start that business? When did it launch? And how can you help people?
Well, I created the business in February of 2018, before I was certified in anything. And because I knew that was what I was going to be doing. And Amazing Outlook had been my, I came up with that even before I got sober, amazingly. So, I've always had this personal development streak in me. And so even though I was drinking heavily, I always had this idea, and at times it may have been grandiose, but I had this idea of doing something of, I feel a little grandiose saying this word, importance. And I had an amazing outlook at that point. And so that became my email address, nancy.amazingoutlook. And so when I decided that I was going to be a coach, it was a no-brainer for me. Because I still continue to have an amazing outlook. And that's ultimately what I do as I coach people, is change their outlook on life so that they can have an amazing outlook too. And whether it's, they're struggling with alcohol or food or gambling or Netflix or whatever the hell it is with the coping tool that they use, if they change their thoughts, change their mindset, change their outlook, then they can change their life. It's very simple. It's not necessarily easy, but it's very simple. And
who would you say your ideal client is?
My ideal client is a woman who really probably over 40. That's not to say that I wouldn't work with younger women, but I like women who have been around the block once or twice, have had some life experience and know that there's a better way. That they just don't know how to get there, but they know that, they have that kind of, is that all there is sort of feeling? And now what? Right. And so they probably are struggling with a coping tool. They probably are over drinking or not managing their nutrition right. And I am not a nutritionist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going through a weight loss coaching program myself, and I am learning tons. I just came off of a boot camp this weekend that was fabulous.
Oh, good for you.
But everything comes down to your thoughts. And if you think you're miserable, then you're going to be miserable. And so I I work with women who want to not be miserable and how to change their thoughts so that they won't, and help them learn why they do what they do, because the coping tool, drinking, food, gambling, Netflix, that's a symptom. That's not the problem. That's not the circumstance. That's the symptom of it.
So how can people get a hold of you? How can they find you? If you can share your links and your website. Yes. By the way, that is one heck of a website. Love that website.
Oh, thank you.
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you very much. AmazingOutlookCoaching.com is the website. You can email me, Nancy, at AmazingOutlookCoaching.com. And I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, both personal and business pages. I'm on Instagram, Nancy McKay _ And I'd love to, just hear from anybody and answer any questions that anybody might have.
So do you have any final pearls of wisdom that you want to drop on the listeners?
Well, I think my biggest pearl of wisdom is that as women, we are not taught to really look inside ourselves. We're so busy pleasing everybody else and taking care of everybody else, and we're worried about everybody else, that we often don't know ourselves very well. And I think that if women really look inside and listen to their inner wisdom, then they don't have to numb out. And it's our bodies know the truth. Our brains will lie to us all day long. But so if we ask our body, how does this feel? How does our body feel when we're thinking a thought or faced with a situation? If we listen to our body's wisdom.
Beautiful. Something I don't know where I saw it that you have written, if it's on your website or on some of the posts I've been following on Instagram. And so correct me, I'm paraphrasing, I'm going off my memory, which is not always reliable. That it was something to the effect that a truly empowered woman is one that knows themselves, or I can't remember what it was that you said, but doesn't have to numb out. That's it. A truly empowered woman does not have to numb out.
Right. And I believe that to be true, because if you really know yourself, then you're gonna accept yourself, right? And you're not going to run away from yourself by taking on mind altering substances or doing something that enables you to check out, and not deal with what's happening around you. And, we all like to relax and we all like to numb out. Let's face it, right? That's part of the human condition, I think. But if we're doing it all the time, then that's an issue. And it means that you're not paying attention to yourself.
Well, I think that life is really hard sometimes, as we all know. Life is also full of hits, but how we manage those hits and have other coping mechanisms that we can rely on, is what keeps us healthy and happy. And let's just face it, the past year and a half or so has been really challenging for all of us. And I think all of us have gotten into habits. I think the sales of chocolate in my local Whole Foods has really soared, and it's all because of me. So I'm very proud of that fact. But you do what you do. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
If we only knew then what we know now, we all would have bought stock in Zoom and, stocked up on massive amounts of chocolate.
Right. And toilet paper.
Yeah.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for being here today. And thanks for sharing those wonderful stories. And love Sundance. She's going to be in my heart forever now after hearing that wonderful story.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you as well. And remember, we all get stuck sometimes. We all go through really tough times, bumps in the road of life. And remember to take the time to really look inside yourself and find your inner strength. And give Nancy a call, send her an email, check out her website, because she can help you do that if you are stuck and you need a little bit of help, because we all need some help sometime. And finding that inner strength and inner power really helps us find our warrior spirit. And that is the way of the Femininja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the Femininja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.